You guys both interviewed people, so I want to like highlight this part, this little 3 minute snippet. It's gonna be like
Sure.
a short. I'm a CRA, 2 year CRA. Okay, you guys interview me. Like, just pretend I'm a regular CRA. You're interviewing, group interview. Just act,
Okay.
people are always asking me, and I'm like, I'm not a recruiter. I don't know. Let's just try 2 3 minutes. You guys interview me. I'm a CRA looking for a new role as a CRA.
Okay.
I guess
Why should we hire you? Why you?
Why me? That's a good question. I know what I'm doing. Number one, I'm passionate about the therapeutic indication that you guys are hiring for. I've previously been a study coordinator on the same indication. Um, I'm organized. I know how to go through the protocols quickly. Self starter. I don't need to be told too often what to do.
Okay.
I know how to do it.
So it sounds like on paper you could do the job.
Right.
But we've got 5 other people who are exactly the same as you and say exactly the same. So why you?
I probably require the least supervision of those 5, is what I'm guessing, because I'm self starter and I'm used to doing things on my own.
How have you demonstrated that in your personal life? Can you give me an example of when you've done something like that in your personal life?
Ooh, they ask you about personal life? This is, see, Guru Nation. This is good stuff. Let's see. In my personal life, yes. So I've started when I was a site owner, I was in charge not only of getting the work done and getting results, but of managing people on my team and training them on how to do things. So I understand what is already required of me because I have
Perfect.
done that for others.
That's great. That's a fantastic answer. And that's exactly what I want to hear. I want to hear what you've done, with the actions you've taken, how you turned that around, and absolutely what differentiates you from everyone else that stood in the same line with all those same credentials. James.
I think a big one, Dan, for as a CRA, you spoke about yourself earlier. Look, it's a stressful gig. Talk me through a stressful situation that you've had and how you managed it is probably a good one for people to cover. At least have a couple of examples ready to go. Because everyone wants to know how people will cope in that stressful situation, but not just theoretically what they've done. That comes into the experience side of things. If you've not been in research, talk about another area where it's been stressful, you've had to meet deadlines, how you did it, and then what you would perhaps do again if given the opportunity, because let's face it, there's always room for improvement. And that's probably the other thing that people overlook, is showing their willingness to actually learn and be teachable. Because let's face it, managers, not necessarily business owners all the time, but managers want to know that they can kind of mold someone in a way that forms, goes with the company culture or the way that they like to do things. So I'd say that they're all good things. But for me, sometimes speaking as a recruiter interviewing people, the conversation is often again different. When I reach out to people, the people that I've reached out to, I'm calling them and targeting them for a reason, because I'm already interested. So yes, I want to know about these stressful situations and how they will deal with them. But I will probably have a conversation like this and say, look, I'll almost give them some coaching. It's free. It's not like you get the marketing gurus and CV resume experts on LinkedIn these days. When you speak to me as a recruiter, that is all free. I'm there to work with people as a collaborative to help them get their foot through the door. I'll then arm them with all the ammunition that they will need to perform well at that interview. But for me, what I want to know about is similar to yourself. Is like, where's their drive? Are they sharp? Are they enthusiastic? These sort of kind of soft skills are the bits that I look for. The personality, the bits that aren't necessarily on the CV.
And ultimately, if I'm hiring someone, what I'm looking for is someone that I actually want to spend 8 hours a day with. And if I don't, then there isn't going to be much of a conversation. And I know we shouldn't go on first impressions, but the reality is that we spend a heck of a lot of time at work. We spend a hell of a lot of time not at work, thinking about work, communicating with people from work. So you've got to have that connection. And for me, I need to make connections with people. I'm all about connections and finding the human side. because that's the thing that, you know, if I'm building a high performing team, I want people that are not just enthusiastic and motivated, but actually that I'm really interested in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I can learn from, and that are mutually interesting and interested. You know, do they ask questions? Do they want to learn? Do they want to grow in their capabilities? Or do they think they're the finished article? You know, maybe they've got a first class honours from Cambridge and they think they don't need to do anything because they think they've achieved it at 21. Well,
that's one of the main things, actually, Adam, that you've touched on there. Like, I know, Dan, like the idea of us throwing loads of questions at you, like as a CRA. You know what? The interviewer may or may not be an experienced interviewer. Like, I often speak to, you know, people that have been promoted to like director of clinical operations. They're interviewing. They ask me what questions should they be asking because that's the first time they're hiring. So probably one of the best bits of advice for any entry level CRAs is to try to take a lead in that interview. Make it easy to interview you by asking more questions than you're asked.
That's a great point. And actually, at the end of a conversation or during the conversation, the questions that you ask as the interviewee often give a greater insight into the brain and the person than anything that you're going to answer, because you think, you know, they're fairly formulaic interviews, aren't they? You know what you're going to be asked. And yet it's the other things that you add to the conversation that really give a much more rounded, interesting feedback to the individual. That's what I find as well. Get out your comfort zone, do something different, challenge yourself and see where it goes, because you just don't know unless you do that.
So
I definitely say that is the one, Dan. That is the one that I'd be driving home to entry level folks is, look, you're not necessarily judged on how you answer questions put to you. You are judged on the questions you put to the interviewer. By the end of it, I'd pretty much know whether I had that job leaving that interview. You shouldn't leave an interview not knowing where you stand.
One other point to follow on from that: know your value. Okay, so as an interviewee, know your value. If someone asks you what your salary is right now, okay, that's fine, but what's your value? So it's knowing your value to the industry that you serve, and it's taken me years to figure that one out. And I've done costings and costed for both CRO and pharma. I've been both sides of that fence, so I know the nuts and bolts and I know the numbers. But actually know your value. Know your value to the industry that you serve.
And to add to that, I would certainly say before you commit, depending on when the interviewer perhaps asks about expectations in the interview, don't just answer, qualify first. How, you know, ask them, how could I tell you what I would be expected when I don't know how many hours I would be doing, what benefits there are, all of the surrounding bit, because the salary is just one tiny
number.
element.
It's one fifth of that.
Kind of qualify everything. You know, if we go to buy a new house, a new car, you know, someone asks you how much you want to spend on a house. How do I know? How do I know unless I know what's in that house? How many square foot it is? Like, has it got a pool? Has it got a hot tub like you guys? You know, has it got all of these things? Then I can tell you what I think it's worth.